بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So my dear brothers and sisters, continuing from the series of questions as we had mentioned in the last lesson, which was last week, the common questions that our brothers have received and have compiled from our brothers in India, common questions from the non-Muslims. Continuing in those, and these are the questions which I had an opportunity to ask Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, and I've got his answers recorded. And as normal, as usual, I'll post the Arabic recording after the lesson, and as well as the lesson itself, the translation in a PDF form as well. So continuing, the questions were asked, and they were around talaq. What is the concept of talaq? Is it as simple as saying talaq 3 times and done, the marriage is ended? And isn't triple talaq unjust for women? So Shaykh Hafidhahullah, Shaykh Al Anjaree, he answered to these questions from non-Muslims, and he said, these issues revolve around one affair. As I spoke about the same issues from the previous questions from this series of questions. And it revolves around al-adl, around justice. And justice, yustamad, is derived from who? From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the creator of all creation. Justice is derived from Allah. And justice, which has been pre-decreed for the creation, that whatever Allah wants, He can. And here comes the affair of at-taslim. Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, here comes the affair of complete submission, taslim, complete submission to the ubudiyah, to singling out Allah in all of your worship. Here comes the affair of taslim to ubudiyah. So the atheists, the malahida, they have this anger within themselves. This anger is caused by their circumstances in life or the lack of ability in understanding all that which they see along with their own existence. So it's either by their circumstances in life or their lack of ability in understanding in what they see, in which they see, along with their own existence, or them having a lack of answers for their questions. So there's this anger within them. And Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, this gives birth to, or it creates a hidden anger within themselves. Al-ghadabul khafi. And the Shaykh repeats this over the answer a few times. This gives birth to or creates a hidden anger within themselves, similar to the hidden anger which exists with the people of desires and the Ahlul Bid'ah, or the people of innovations. So the Sunni says or proclaims, I am upon that which the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were upon in the understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah, and submit to it with a complete submission, a taslim. The Sunni, he says, I am that which the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were upon in understanding the Quran and the Sunnah. And Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, and this is an affair which is Rabbani, which is divine. This is an affair which is Rabbani, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah said in the Quran, فَلَا وَرَبُّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِيمَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. In meaning, but know by your Lord, فَلَا وَرَبُّكَ, that they can have no faith, لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ, حَتَّى, until they make you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, judge in all of your disputes between them, and find in themselves no resistance. لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا, and they find in themselves no resistance against your decisions, and accept them with a full submission. وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا, they submit and accept to them with a full submission. So Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, pay attention to this. Allah mentions, and then, thumma, they find themselves. Then they find themselves having no resistance against your decisions. And then, as Shaykh Al Anjaree goes on to explain, in explanation of this ayah, he says, and then They find themselves within themselves, meaning that this is a hidden affair. They find in themselves, within themselves, meaning it's a hidden affair. So that they don't find within themselves the mu'min, the one who follows the Quran and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the noble companions. They find themselves with this hidden anger towards the rulings of Allah and find a hidden anger towards the creation which Allah has created and pre-decreed. Pre-decreed means pre-decreed for yourself, pre-decreed for those around you, what Allah has from His qadr. So the mu'min who follows the Quran and the Sunnah upon the understanding of the companions, he doesn't have this hidden anger within himself towards the rulings of Allah, towards the Sharia of Allah. And after all of this, they submit a complete submission. They submit a complete submission. And Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, here is a great fight between Iman and Kufr. So when the non-Muslim asks, why does talaq terminate a marriage between a husband and a wife? So this questioner isn't satisfied with the rulings of Allah because he or she isn't a mu'min in the first place. As for the mu'min, the person of Iman, he says and he proclaims and he has this statement and he says this statement as that which the Prophet ﷺ ordered his companions and that which the companions were nurtured upon. And that is, سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا غُفْرَانَكَ رَبَّنَا وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. We hear and we obey. We seek your forgiveness, O Lord, Ya Rabb, Ya Allah, and to you is the return. And to you is the return, meaning, as Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah explained, return of all of us and the creation. So the one who has been successful, who has been successfully guided to Iman, to the one who has been successfully guided to Iman, and this is no doubt from the favors and bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will be successfully guided to be upon taslim, upon complete submission, and al-inqiyad to the rulings of Allah. There is just as a side point, a slight deeper understanding between taslim and al-inqiyad. They're both similar, both consist of submission. Al-inqiyad is maybe a bit more in the sense of its submission along with surrendering. You completely submit and surrender, that you are in complete submission and you know that this is what is right for you and you surrender to it, to the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah goes on to explain, he says, and if he is not guided successfully, he doesn't have any other path. Even the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wasn't given success in guiding his uncle Abu Talib. Rather, Allah said to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. Verily, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you will not guide whom you like. So even if you love this person, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي, you will not guide. You will not guide. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Verily, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you will not guide whom you want, but Allah guides whom He wills. So guidance to Iman is no doubt a favor, a bounty from Allah upon His slave. So that's why Shaykh Al Anjaree, he said in his answer, and the brothers, if they return back to the recording, they'll hear the Shaykh. He says, I always say this statement and I repeat it constantly. What is this statement regarding Iman? That you inherit two tremendous affairs from having Iman. Being happy with the qadr of Allah, with the pre-decree of Allah, and being happy upon the rulings, the Sharia rulings set out by Allah, like a talaq and other than them from the Sharia rulings. So one is being happy with the pre-decree of Allah and being happy with the rulings, the Sharia rulings set out by Allah. And these are from the tremendous affairs of having Iman. So having Iman in Allah and believing in the Quran upon the correct understanding of the Prophet and his noble companions creates in you Iman upon the will and pre-decree of Allah, and Iman upon the rulings of Allah and His commands, and Iman in that which Allah has prohibited. So if a slave, man or woman, are able to actualize these two affairs in them, then they will have here rahatul bal, peace of mind. And they will not have within themselves this anger. You won't find this hidden anger, this ghadabul khafi with the mu'min. This mu'min that has a correct iman, because he submits to the rulings of Allah with a complete submission, with taslim, and completely submits to all of the Sharia rulings of Allah, that which Allah has pre-decreed, to that which Allah has pre-decreed for this person himself or to those who are around him. He submits to all of this. So he or she, if she has correct iman, and the fruits of this having correct iman upon the qadr of Allah and His Sharia rulings is peace of mind. The fruits or results of which is peace of mind. And you won't find within this person himself this hidden anger, because he is in this peace of mind. And he or she finds themselves in this peace of mind. Here, when they find themselves in this peace of mind, here they find themselves in happiness. Here they find themselves in happiness. And that's why you find, Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he explains, he said, that's why you find the philosophers in writing in their books in the past, or even today in the year 2024, they're constantly asking this question: what is happiness? They're trying to find the answer to this. What is happiness? Till this day. And they aren't able to answer this question. And these philosophers, who most of them are atheists, these atheists who constantly have doubts and confusion regarding the affair of happiness, because they have within themselves this hidden anger, an anger with wrath and revulsion against those around them and upon themselves and their minds and their desires, or even their intentions, or the diseases they have in their minds. All these issues or all these difficulties that they have, the atheists. So Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, after giving this introduction to this question in his answer, he says, now we return to the question, this question from the non-Muslims, that the talaq is in this way, or it's by way of three talqat, three pronunciations of talaq, and then a man can't return back to the same wife, and that it is a fasl baynuna, it's a complete termination of the marriage. The Shaykh said, my answer to this, that this is the Sharia ruling of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah mentions in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون, that he cannot be questioned as to what he does, that is Allah, while they will be questioned. So in your eyes, O questioner, do you think you can question the one who is above the seven heavens? Why do you make this affair in this way? Do you think you have the ability to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why do you make this affair in this way? Why are the rulings in this way? And then with that answer that you submit to it, you are a non-believer, an atheist. You don't even believe in Allah in the first place. But as for the Muslim, he believes in what is above the seven heavens. He believes that Allah rose above his throne and Allah is with us in his hearing and seeing, meaning that Allah is the all-knower and sees everything and hears everything. The mu'min, he has iman in this. So we say that this is the disease of the heart, because they weren't able to achieve success from Allah to be upon iman. And Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, he said, here we make dua for the questioner. We ask Allah for their guidance, be the questioner either a man or a woman. We ask Allah for their guidance and ask Allah for them to be upon iman. Allahumma ameen. That's the end of the Shaykh's answer to this question. And I'll just repeat a few points that the Shaykh mentioned, just to try and have for myself and for the brothers listening today and the sisters listening today. The Shaykh, which he said that these are the things that I repeat all the time, these statements regarding iman. He mentions, Shaykh Al Anjaree Hafidhahullah, that you inherit two tremendous affairs from having iman. The first one being being happy with the pre-decree of Allah, and being happy with the Sharia rulings set out by Allah. Once you have those two things, and once you have that happiness in that, in submitting and being happy with the qadr of Allah and being happy with the Sharia rulings, you find yourselves in rahatul bal. You find yourselves having peace of mind. And once you find yourselves having peace of mind, here you find yourself being upon happiness. This was the answer from our Shaykh Hafidhahullah. And that's the end of the question and answer from this session from today. We'll continue bi'idhnillah. I still have a few more questions that I've managed to ask the Shaykh and got the answers for. We'll continue bi'idhnillah with them in the coming weeks. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you, brothers. The next question, dear Shaykh, is two questions. What is the concept of talaq? Is it simply as saying talaq 3 times and done? The marriage is ended? Isn't talaq unjust for the woman?
هذه المسائل تدور في مدار واحد كما ذكرت في المسائل اللي قبلها من الأسئلة اللي قبلها. العدل يستمد من خالق الخلق، العدل الذي قدر للخلق ما شاء أن يقدر، وهنا التسليم لعبودية الله. فالملاحدة في داخلهم غضب، هذا الغضب باعثه ظروف الحياة أو عدم القدرة على فهم كل ما لا يرى مع وجوده، أو عدم وجود إجابات لمسائل كثيرة. فهذا يورث عند الملاحدة غضب خفي يتشابه مع الغضب الخفي عند أهل الأهواء والبدع. فالسني يقول أنا على ما عليه أصحاب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في فهم القرآن والسنة، ويسلم بذلك تسليما. وهذا أمر رباني. قال تعالى: فلا وربك لا يؤمنون حتى يحكموك فيما شجر بينهم ثم انظر ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم حرجا مما قضيت ويسلموا تسليما. ثم لا يجدوا في أنفسهم، داخل نفسه، هذا أمر خفي، حتى لا يجد المؤمن المتبع للكتاب والسنة على فهم الصحابة الكرام غضب خفي داخل نفسه تجاه أحكام الله وتجاه خلق ما خلق الله وما قدر جل وعلا، ويسلم تسليما. هنا الصراع العظيم بين الإيمان والكفر. فعندما يأتي غير المسلم فيقول: لماذا الطلاق يفصل بين الزوج وزوجه؟ فهو لم يرتضي حكم الله عز وجل، لأنه ليس بمؤمن. فالمؤمن ماذا يقول؟ كما أمر النبي الصحابة وتربى الصحابة على هذا النهج، بأن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. وإليك المصير لهذا الخلق ولنا كبشر. فمن يوفق بفضل الله إلى الإيمان يوفق إلى التسليم والانقياد لحكم الله، فإن لم يوفق فليس له سبيل. حتى النبي صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم لم يوفق بهداية عمه أبو طالب، بل قال الله له لمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم: إنك لا تهدي من أحببت. حتى لو كنت تحبه إنك لن تهديه، إنك لن تهدي من أحببت، ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء. الهداية إلى الإيمان فضل من الله على العبد. فلذلك أقول دائما وأدندن حول هذه العبارة: الإيمان يورث أمرين عظيمين: الرضا بقدر الله، والرضا بأحكام الله الشرعية كالطلاق وغير ذلك. الإيمان بالله، الإيمان بالكتاب والسنة على فهم الصحابة الكرام، يورث الإيمان بقضاء الله وقدره، والإيمان بشرع الله وأمره ونهيه. وهذين الأمرين إذا تحقق في العبد، هذين الأمرين تحقق عند المرء راحة البال، وليس في نفسه غضب. الغضب الخفي لن تجد عند المؤمن الغضب الخفي. المؤمن الإيمان الصحيح، لأنه يسلم لأمر الله تسليما في قدره وشرعه، لأنه يسلم لأمر الله في قدره وشرعه. شرعه أي الأحكام الشرعية، وقدره أي ما قدر الله له ولمن حوله. فإذا آمن الإيمان الصحيح، ثمرة هذا الإيمان الصحيح الإيمان بقدر الله وشرع الله. فإذا آمن بقدر الله وشرع الله وهو ثمرة الإيمان الصحيح، ثمرة ذلك راحة البال، لا يجد في نفسه الغضب الخفي، فهو مرتاح البال. فإذا وجد راحة البال وجد السعادة. ولذلك ستجد دائما الفلاسفة في كتبهم حتى في هذا الزمن 2024 فرنجي، ستجد دائما يقولون: ما هي السعادة؟ إلى اليوم ما يستطيع الفلاسفة، وهم في الحقيقة يعني الكثير منهم ملاحدة، الملاحدة يستشكلون معنى السعادة، لأن فيهم غضب خفي ثائر على ما حوله وعلى نفسه وعقله وإيرادات وأمراض عقله. فنرجع إلى السؤال: لماذا شاء الله أن يكون الطلاق بهذه الأحكام التي ذكرت في السؤال من غير المسلم؟ أي أن إذا كان هناك 3 طلقات خلاص تكون بائنة بينونة كبرى، انفصال حتى تتزوج رجل غيره، غير هذا الذي طلقها 3 طلقات. الجواب بأن هذا شرع الله عز وجل، والله لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. هل تستطيع أن تسأل ما الذي فوق السماوات بنظرك؟ لماذا أنت تجهل هذا الأمر وتسلم به وأنت ملحد؟ أما المسلم يؤمن ما الذي فوق السماوات، فيؤمن أن الله سبحانه وتعالى على عرشه فوق 7 سماوات، على عرشه استوى جل وعلا، وهو معنا في سمعه وبصره وقدرته جل وعلا. فنقول هذا الجواب هو مرض قلبي، لأنه ما استطاع أن يصل إلى توفيق الله بالإيمان، ونسأل الله له الهداية والإيمان، أو نسأل الله لها الهداية والإيمان، اللهم آمين.